Word. And I'm going to share. Can y'all see that? Yes, no.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, let's get started. So for this meeting, we're going to go over the introduction to Metasploit and Empire. This is the start of our next little sprint. We're going to go over Metasploit, and then we're going to, in the future, try to write our own scripts for Metasploit, maybe our own little package, and then use that in a hack or something. And that'll envelop the next 2 weeks or so. So first things first, the disclaimer. Yes, you can do very bad things with Metasploit. You can do very illegal things with Metasploit. If you do that, we did not tell you to do that. We had no part in it. So don't be dumb. Use common sense. Yeah, if you get caught, we'll make an example out of you. So what is Metasploit? Well, it's a exploitation framework designed for penetration testing. If you meet a pen tester, they will know what Metasploit is. It is included in every build of Kali. And we've actually used it past last quarter with a bunch of our meetings, like MSF Venom, stuff like that. Its job is to automate tasks and integrate itself with pre-existing tools like Nmap and Wireshark and stuff like that. So inside of Metasploit, you have a bunch of modules. You have several thousand of them, actually. All have their different little tools for different little things, ranging from scanning to obfuscating some code to run some not so nice code, to denial of service, etc. And it's in a hierarchy. So it's built into 4 main branches, which is exploit, auxiliary, post, and payload. So these modules, first is auxiliary. It's used for enumeration, information gathering. Last quarter was basically mostly enumeration, like Nmap, stuff like that. And that's all included in auxiliary. You can do a bunch of different stuff, like man-in-the-middle attacks and different port scans. Next, exploit, where you are going to deliver exploited code to a target system. This is like shelter. We did shelter last quarter. And that is an exploit. You can either find exploits or make your own. Next is post. That is post exploitation tools. So after you exploit and you get in, you get to have a whole section dedicated to what you can do on your targeted machine. So you can have an SSH tunnel, make some backdoors, SQL injection, and some other not so good stuff. Next is payload. That is your method of interacting. It is what you're going to store inside of your exploit. You could hide an executable inside of a PDF. We did that with Baram last quarter. And it's going to be using MSF Venom. That's the most common form of using payloads. So using modules, I'm going to pop open into my virtual machine. So I've already got Metasploit opened up. As you can see, there are about 4,000 different modules. If I wanted to just browse my modules, I could just use auxiliary, and then it would list all of them and how good they are, excellent, etc. You can just kind of just look through these. It'll take you a while because there are a lot of them. And you can experiment. That's the game with this. Just play around with it, learn by doing, because exploiting is it's not the easiest thing, but you have so many different tools and you can use your imagination. It's fun. So we're going to do a basic port scan with this, this module. This is the port scanner, and every module should have the show options command. And these are your settings for the module that you have set up. You're going to see name, settings, required, and its description. All of these except for remote hosts is set to a default. So I'm going to set the option of remote hosts to my VPS. That's set. And if we do show options again, we'll see that we have our hosts set up. Ports, we're going to change that because it's a lot of ports. So we can change ports to something easy like 20 to 30. We can look again, and it says it 2030. But if I wanted to say, oops, I didn't want that, I want to go back to default, I can unset something and then pull it up, and it's back to its default. So we're going to set ports back to 2030. Everything is set, ready to go. We're going to run it with run, and it's going to take a few seconds. And you can see that I have port 21 and 22 open on my VPS for FTP. And that's pretty straightforward use of the module, of a module. So I tried to set up exploitation on my own machine, and it refused to work. But I will explain what should happen. So next is exploiting a host. That is a 3-step process. The first of them is the hardest, which is executing the appropriate exploit. I mentioned earlier that exploits.
Wait, why didn't it work?
What's up?
You said it didn't work. How come?
So my firewall must be really, really good or something. I tried to connect through a port. It was PSXSec. It's like a telnet, lightweight telnet program on Windows. And it just refused, even though I turned off my firewall and everything. And it just said no. But I did find a tutorial that showed what should have happened. So I will show you what should happen if you manage to pull off a PSXSec exploit.
So your skills are weak.
Maybe. But anyway, exploitation is a 3-step process. First is the hardest, executing the appropriate exploit. Have you heard the term of 0 day, 1 day? Those vulnerabilities in companies or programs. These are the exploits that you would execute. And once you figure that out, you get to have fun with the next 2 steps, which is uploading the appropriate payload, which could be pretty much anything, and then running your post-exploitation modules. So
if these are all on Metasploit, they would all be documented, right?
That is correct. You can
So
Google
not be
all
zero.
of these modules that are way up here. You can Google all of these and figure out what you want to do, like a finger service user enumerator. So we were going to use PSXSec, which is telnet program. And it's under exploit because that's what we're doing. We're exploiting something. So set the host, the user, the password. We would run it. Oops. And it would show up. You can see this. That's good enough. Okay. So it would set up a reverse TCP. That's the most common payload for any exploit. I think it's the defaulted payload anyway, which is a reverse shell. You are pulling up a shell in your machine, but it's actually accessing the other machine through a port, which is port 4444. So it's going to run, set up a meterpreter session. And the goal of this tutorial was to dump the hashed passwords of all the users on this network. So it would run that, and assuming you got into meterpreter correctly, it would dump all the hashed passwords into wherever it said it would go. and you would use the knowledge of a previous meeting to crack these passwords, and then you could get in and elevate yourself to root privileges on the remote machine, and then perform whatever you want to do, whether you are a good hacker or a bad hacker. So I showed you like a really basic usage of Metasploit. That takes way too much time. Instead, we would use something easier like bash and just spew out one whole command to execute. This was used in other meetings. It would MSF in them with a bunch of different options, a bunch of gobbledygook that you probably didn't understand. But if you expand it out, these are the commands, which would be in a PC script file. These are the commands that you would see, and that's what's going to be run. So next we have Empire, which is a lot like Metasploit.
Oh, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
How do you run the PC script?
It's not a point slash. There's a command, and
there's a flag.
Yeah, there's a flag for it. I've completely forgotten it, but I did read it because I think you run it with a completely different program, if I remember correctly. So next we have Empire, which I said is a lot like Metasploit, but it is built strictly for Windows. Unfortunately, it reached end of life 2 years ago, but there were a bunch of different forks that were made from the GitHub, and I just installed from a fork, which didn't line up with the tutorial that I was going for, which once again, I will show you what's supposed to happen, but was unable to do. So like I said, it's made for Windows. It abuses PowerShell. So you're wondering, why would you not Metasploit it? You could use Empire, and then you have complete control over PowerShell. PowerShell is a very powerful thing that Microsoft made. You have pretty much full access to memory with the 132 API. You can make as many malicious binaries as you want to, given that you have a PowerShell. And you can hook your managed code and do whatever you want with it. So Empire also has modules, a lot like Metasploit, and these are in order. They build off of each other. So the first one is Listener, where you can listen to a port action. And you can see the screenshot. You'll see if listening to whatever IP this is on port 8080, you have different options, info, same as show options. Shows all of your variables for what you're looking at. And from there, you have stagers. Stagers are used from the listeners menu. And these set up the post-exploitation environment. Imagine that you are setting the stage for your malicious code. So, what's up? Sorry about that. So, like I said, they set up the post-exploitation environment. You would launch a stager with the use stager command, and you can look at all your options with info again. Then from stager, you have everything set up. You're listening, you have the stage set, and now you have your agents. This is like your reverse GCP, your reverse shell. Once an agent is initialized, it'll say, hey, agent yada yada is now active. So now you can list your agents, and then this is in the way. This, and then interact with them as you wish and do whatever malicious things you want to do with your agent. And then they also have modules that are variably similar to Metasploit's, like situational awareness network share finder. And you can, they have info, show options. The syntax is pretty similar to Metasploit. So if you're using different tools, you can interchange them, and it's pretty similar. Okay, that's it. Is there any questions, comments, or concerns? Don't be shy.
So you said Empire is no longer usable? Is there any
No,
substitute
it's
for it?
usable. There are different forks of it that have different options. The Empire that is on the master branch is Python 2, and that's end of life. And I couldn't even install it, so I had to use the BC Security branch or fork. But it can work if you do it correctly. Microsoft got their stuff together and really shaped up the security of PowerShell, but it's still possible.
So what would you say is the easiest route to go?
Metasploit and then pick whatever you want to pick and then go wild.
Yeah, Metasploit's going to be the one that's
That's
more
the one
easy
you're
to
mostly
use out of the
going to
box.
use. And you can Google whatever Metasploit module you want to, and you'll have plenty of options.
Empire is going to be more of a when you need a scalpel instead of the hammer that Metasploit is. Empire is so specialized for specific things like getting those PowerShell objects that you can only access with a very convoluted PowerShell script. And they've got all of those as modules for you.
Yep. Okay. Well, on that note, thank you all for coming. Please don't do anything illegal with this newfound knowledge.
I don't know about that, Chief.
We will make a laughingstock out of you if you fail.
All right.
That goes for you, Jeremiah, as well.
I bet.